neuroscience, this pea-sized portion of your brain, controls the ability of your brain. It's the gateway for what happens that is like the control tower of an airport. That's how important your reticular activation system is that most of us have never, ever heard of. And the revelation of this is that you decide. You have this power that God has given you to decide before something happens. And I call it predecision.
I really liked this year's Grow Day, and as somebody that goes to a lot of national meetings and conventions, I always love the breakout sessions because you get deeper.
My main takeaway from Grow Day, I found it really informative. You know, I always knew that being in a group was good. When you come together with another person that you align with, right, those right values, the sky's the limit.
Success is hidden in templates. There is a template literally for everything that you want in life. You just have to find the template and you have to follow it. So come and join us. Start winning like never before and let 2024 be your greatest year ever.
You know, the Foundation's Mastermind. I knew that it was going to challenge me. I knew that it was going to be an environment that I could grow into. What I was looking for personally was an area that I could work in my thought life, that I could develop myself and I could grow thinking about certain things, whether that was in my life or my business, and really just put a multiplier on it.
Wow. What an amazing experience. I got way more than I expected. I went in with one question, one goal, and I got way more above and beyond that. The feedback from all the other people in the room was, again, way above and beyond. I highly recommend it. You're absolutely gonna love it.
Maybe today nobody's clapped for you. Maybe nobody today has been excited to see you. I'm excited to see you, y'all. Your alignments will eventually determine your assignments. Your divine alignments will eventually determine your divine assignments. Your dominion is attached. Hey, we're live on YouTube right now, and I just wanted to welcome you right into the room. Come on, guys, give them a big hand. Hey, whoever's watching might be one person, might not be anybody, but this is our practice. But I just thought, I've never done this before, and I thought I'd just bring you guys into our experience for a few minutes because there's dynamics that happen with being in a room like this. And one of the greatest dynamics is I didn't come up with the thought process of Mastermind. Mastermind was an original concept that some of the greatest thinkers who became thought leaders in the world all found themselves gathering together. I'm talking about people like Henry Ford. I'm talking about people like Charles Schwab. I'm talking about people like W.F. Woolworth, who originally started the whole, like you see Walgreens today and CVS today, would have never been a Walgreens, would have never been a CVS, would have never been in the old days. Some of you will remember Eckerd's, if there hadn't been a Woolworth. I'm talking about people like Thomas Edison, who sat in rooms like this with a Henry Ford And what was amazing is that Thomas Edison was a guy who a reporter asked him one time, he said, man, you have failed so many times. Like even, and there's a lot of debate about this, whether it was Tesla who came up with the incandescent light bulb or Thomas Edison, but Thomas Edison got the credit. It's who brings it across the finish line, not who originally thought about it. So there's a lot of people that think about a lot of things, but they never gain the power to turn their thoughts into things. They think about a lot of things. They think about ideas all the time. So you've got a guy who on purpose, men who on purpose, presidents who would sit in rooms with great thinkers. Like you've got a guy right now named Donald J. Trump who's created a think tank with Elon Musk. People who have fixed mindsets, people who have their own political agendas, people who are on the take, frankly, people who are fraudsters, frankly, people who are benefiting from the lack of accountability in our country today, are criticizing and saying, oh, these two billionaires working together. No, what it is you're seeing a think tank that is being birthed now that transcends bureaucracy, that is the cause for democracy not to work. Now, first of all, I could just go on for an hour about this, but the United States is not a democracy. The United States is a republic. When we pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, in Him indivisible. Anyway, when we are pledging our allegiance, we're pledging to a republic. We're not pledging to a democracy. What's wrong with democracy is majority rule. That is not what makes America great, because if the wrong people in majority rule, which, by the way, let me just say in the last 4 years, this is my opinion, and I'll just even take it a whole nother level in my delusion, my prophetic insight, that we've been living in the last 4 years from 2020 to 2024, lies, demonic influence, people that should have never been in power. It was a fraud. You look at all the presidential races in modern history, 65 million won, 63 million won. And then when COVID happened, 81 million people voted for Joe Biden. And then this last year, Donald Trump gets 77 million, which is a real deal. And you think, wow, how does that even happen? Let me tell you how it happens. It happens by such a low level of thinking and a thought process of majority rules that an entire country can go in the wrong direction, causing the entire world to go into the wrong direction. So you think about your own life, and we talk about it here a lot, guys, but your alignments are more important than your assignments. The level of your thinking is going to determine the level of being that you are. The level of your being is going to determine the level of your doing. The level of your think, be, and your do is going to determine what you have in life. And so the original genesis of a mastermind was really birthed out of Napoleon Hill's mindset, who wrote one of the greatest theses and early manuals on think and grow rich. In other words, you got to think there before you go there. Think and grow rich. So I'll let you fill in the blank. Think and grow what? So here's my question to you. Where did you learn to think like you think? Just think about that for a minute. Who taught you to think like you think? You were born into a family of origin that, whether you realize it or not, they had a way of thinking in that family. You know, I'm reminded, and this is something that again, is a widely told story, but a guy goes to his wife and he just is asking a guy question, honestly. Like, why do you always cut the ends off the ham? She said, because my mother did. So he goes to the mother and said, why do you always cut the ends off the ham? She said, because my mother did. He finally gets to the great-grandmother and says, hey, can I just ask you a question? Like, this has been passed on from generation to generation. Why do you always cut the ends off the ham? Well, I never had a pan big enough to fit the ham into. And these thought processes, that's a real, simple thought, but these thought processes are passed on generationally. Racism is a thought process that's not white, it's not black, it's hate. That's all it is. So here's what Jesus said. He said, In Christ, there is neither male nor female. In Christ, there's neither slave nor free. In Christ, in other words, he obliterated the potential prejudices that he knew that mankind would have. There's neither rich nor poor, slave or free. There's neither male nor female. But yet, are there males and females? Yes. Are there only males and females? Yes. Anyway, it's like this thought process. So who taught you to think like you think? Who's helping you to think better about what you're thinking about? Who do you talk to about your thoughts? Or are you stuck because of the way you think? Are you stuck because of your thoughts? Are you stuck because of the way you were raised? Are you stuck because you think, well, here's what my opinion is. All right, everybody finish this statement. There's no right or wrong answer. Opinions are like noses. Everybody has one. And other people say it a different way. But the reality is, watch this. This is the path. Our opinion becomes our belief. Think about this. If your opinion is wrong, if you're not open to thinking different, then you start believing something that is not necessarily true. And then here's where your opinion leads to, at the deepest level, your convictions. And then here's what's wrong with most Christians, honestly, is they have these convictions, not based on what the Word of God says. They have convictions based on what they believe to be true or false, right or wrong, that's based on an opinion that somebody had a long, long time ago. What is this room about? This room is not about my opinion, our opinion. It's about acknowledging that when you elevate your thinking, you elevate your life. And when you elevate your thinking, how are you going to elevate your thinking? Through your own personal growth and development. Who's helping you do that? I didn't know about a room like this when I was coming up. I had no idea, and I was first introduced to this type of thought process by accident. I had an uncle who was a very high naval officer that became a president of a bank in Dallas. And I was so inspired by him because every part of his life when I observed him was at such a different level. The house that he lived in, the clothes that he wore, just the level of thinking when I was around him. His acknowledgement of me, it was like he would speak to me in a way that nobody had ever really spoken to me. He would see things in me that I didn't even see in myself. And so he was the first guy, same as Fred Ferguson, he was the first guy that I ever knew, and still to this day, one of the few people that didn't have an office in his house, but had a library in his house. And I remember just like going in his house, and here was my thought at 15, 1975. Who thinks this way? Like who would take it was about a room about this size. Who would have wall to wall, from floor to ceiling, books upon books upon books? A guy that wants to think differently. And I remember one day, I can remember exactly where it was, on the third shelf of the fourth row of the bookcase, and I pulled out an album, a 72 play album of a guy by the name of Zig Ziglar. And interestingly enough, in this guy's library, he had a turntable. I thought, wow. I put it on the turntable, I turned it on, and all of a sudden I hear, it's your attitude, not your aptitude, that determines your altitude. And I went, I need to write that down. That's like the greatest thing I've ever heard. And I started listening. Now listen, I grew up in church, heard a lot of great pastors, and thank God for the gift of pastors. But this guy connected with me in one sentence more than any pastor I'd ever heard. He spoke like deep into, like the Bible says, deep calls to deep. So anyway, that's where it started for me. my personal growth and development journey, it stirred a hunger in me. And then I would later learn in life, by the time I was 18, that Jesus himself said this: blessed, happy, fortunate, the world calls lucky, to those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, God's way of doing things, they will be filled. That's what this room is. This is a bunch of hungry and thirsty individuals. In fact, I've got my mushroom coffee that Sheila made me, and I'm not even a coffee drinker. I just tell her, make sure you put plenty of the right kind of sugar in it. But listen, we've invited you, this is live, into this room, and so many great people I could go around the room. But this is some of the kind of conversation that we have about the value of being in the room. It's a mastermind. It's not just what I think, it's what Yelsey thinks, who's from the Ukraine, by the way. And by the way, you would do a lot better job than what's his name's doing. But anyway, I could go around the room and I could pick different people, but it's conversations, it's teaching, but it's not just my mind, it's Trey, it's Zeus, it's John. It's not just my experience. I mean, we haven't even added it up, but what would be the number of years that just sitting in this room that we have in business, that we have in marriage? I mean, this one right here, today is February 20th. We celebrate 589 months together today. And I think about that. I told her when I was 15, or actually 16, I just turned 16, that if she would be my girlfriend, I would honor her on the 20th of every month for as long as we're together. This morning, I turned over to her as we laid in bed. She started to get up, and I go, don't get up. I said, let me love on you for a minute. And she goes, well, I need to go to the restroom. So she went to the restroom, came back. Too much information, right? But that's what this is, transparency. She came and laid back down. I said, I'm about to speak the most important words I can speak to you. I love you, Sheila. And she said, I love you, Keith. And the second thing that came out of my mouth was, happy anniversary. You see, you have to think like that. You have to think honor. You have to think value. You have to begin to think that way to create a relationship where 589 months, and I'll just ask her in front of everybody here, for 589 months, have I ever, in your recollection, missed a month of honoring you on the 20th? On my Porsche, go ahead and judge me, GT3 is a license plate that says the 20th. It's just another way of honoring her. Nobody has to know what it means. I know what it means. That's a way of thinking. That, watch this, as I share that in this room, it elevates everybody's thinking. Now, they don't have to do it the same way, but just, wow, honor is a way of thinking. And honor is the one thing that will make everything in your life work like God intended it to work. So, mastermind, it's so powerful to be in this room. But Trey, this is Trey Peterson from Minnesota, one of my dearest friends, who I would have never connected with him if we had not been in this room. And over the last several years, it makes me emotional talking about it, he's become one of my dearest friends. And Trey, you had such a unique perspective about not only being in this room, that's one value, but you said something else.
Yes, when I joined the group, I remember thinking 4 years ago, I was like, this is almost as much as my mortgage. And I was like, what am I doing? And I got in the room, and I remember people would say, man, you're paying for friends. What are you doing spending all that money? And over the last 4 years, as my LSA's business is, 3.5 or 4 times what it was. Real quick, Zeus was in town last year. We were going to be driving 2 hours to bring our son to a chiropractor to get specialty care every 3 days a week. And Zeus goes, I've got to know somebody near you. And he knew a guy that went through some training of his that was literally 4 minutes from my house.
Wow.
And our son, who's 7 years old, is sleeping through the night. He was sleeping through the night for years. So those are things, it's like, man, that's the value of being in the room. And then as I shared, Aaron, we met yesterday, and Yellowstone and I, we have our wealth management firm, and we've talked about getting back on TV to build our platform. And I said, Aaron, what do you do? I said, I have a leadership and coaching company. I've got a media company. I help people get on TV. And I said, we need that. And we started talking, and he's got rates that are better than anything else that we've seen. And now we're likely to have a partnership with Aaron because we were in the room. Yeah. So my summary would be, everyone talks about the cost of being in the room, but nobody talks about the cost of not being in the room.
Wow.
And so even as an advisor, this has been the best money that I've invested. Not just how I feel, not just having higher level friends, but it's impacted our finances and everything in our life. So
Isn't that
thank
beautiful?
you guys.
So thank you. And here's what I want to say to everybody. It's not just about, and I love the thought process, and you said this, it's like, it's not about just being in the room, but what's the cost of not being in the room? I mean, what'll be interesting, and I'd like y'all to do, like I'd like you to get a couple of other people that do the same thing that he does, and see what that would cost, and then look at what he charges you, and look at the difference, and I'll bet it more than pays for both of you to be in this room. So in one meeting, watch this, in one meeting, this is only Aaron's second time. Now, I've been coaching Aaron, how many years? 5 years. And I told Aaron when he was, in fact, Aaron, I know your back is to the camera, but kind of turn towards the camera that way because you do TV stuff. But I told you when you were 45, just give an encapsulation of what I told you and what's happened since.
45, the very first line that you shared with me was, Cantor's Law says, everything in the middle looks like failure. Pastor didn't know me at that time. I'd been pastoring a mediocre church. I had hit my lid. I knew that God had created me for a greater impact, a greater influence. I was frustrated. And then Pastor asked me, how old are you? I said, I'm 45. He goes, you're right in the middle of your middle age years. He said, on your 50th birthday, you will usher in the suddenly. And on my 50th birthday, we closed on our dream home. Something that was prophesied 5 years in advance.
Yeah. So isn't that powerful? So here's the thing. Then this is only your second meeting in Elite, right? So in his second meeting, he meets Trey and Yelsey, and Trey they weren't here in our last Elite, they weren't able to be here, but they were here this one, and they meet, and potentially a partnership is formed. Now, that hadn't happened yet, but my point is, I could go around the room. There's a guy sitting over here, Chad, who has a company called Love That Door. And by the way, if you're in the Dallas area, he's your guy. But it's like doors or windows, and our whole new barn dominium we're building, which is about 10,000 square feet, is going to be, the entry of it is going to be his new commercial, because it's just glass, Sheila. It's like crazy. And then I've got glass garage doors in there. Are they doing those too?
I think so.
Are y'all doing the glass garage doors? So man, make them really special for me. But
we were paying $20,000 a month for the last 19 months for a guy to build a computer program with an operating system and a CRM. Just kept dragging out. Flew to Florida for Masterminds, which was September. Left there, signed a contract with Joel, who's in Masterminds, at the 1st of November. He not only completed the program, but wrote it out within 45 days. Wow. Yeah, at a tenth of the price.
Wow. So did that more than pay for your mastermind?
Oh, I could have continued just to pay the 20 grand. I'd have been just fine.
I mean, think about that. We could literally go. We could go around the room, and there's story after story, and there's also some unfolding stories, and there's some stories in the future that have not been told yet. This is what I love about Jesus. He's praying in John 17, and it's the longest prayer recorded in the Bible, and here's what he says. Father, I don't pray for those who just believe now. I pray for those who will believe in the future. I'm not believing for what's happening in the room right now. I'm believing that the greatest alignments that people have ever forged will happen in these rooms. That's my level of thinking. My level of thinking is when you get, y'all help me, with the right people in the right place at the right time, the right things happen. Guys, thank you for joining us. And listen, if you want more information, go to keithcraft.com. I'm sure that my team will put information. But listen, I didn't want to do this to try to sell you. I wanted to do this to give you some insight that there are rooms like this if you want to elevate your thinking. And I think one of the biggest questions, and I'll end with what I started with, for you to ask yourself is, number one, where did I learn to think like I think? Number two, is my current level of thinking helping me to become the kind of person that can make my dreams come true by learning to turn my thoughts into things? And if you'll answer both of those questions, it'll make you hunger and thirst for more. And if it's not this room, find your vibe, find your people, find your tribe, get around people that are going to help you elevate. And again, one last story. So out of a mastermind, the original mastermind that Thomas Edison and Henry Ford were in, they're like thinking, wow, maybe there's some stuff for us to do together. And by the way, I didn't finish the story. When the reporter said to Thomas Edison, man, you failed so many times in trying to create the incandescent light bulb. Isn't it over 10,000 times you failed? He said, no, I just found 10,000 ways that it didn't work. And I finally found a way for it to work. So again, we call that 10,000 hours of practice, i.e. Malcolm Gladwell. But Thomas Edison and Henry Ford were in a mastermind, and there was a guy that they invited named Harvey Firestone. He started getting into the room with them. And so they're all in a room like this. And Henry Ford said to Thomas Edison, man, there's a lot of competition for these motorized wagons that we're building. And Thomas Edison said, well, let me think about it. And Harvey Firestone's sitting there. So long story short, he said, Harvey, we got to figure out a way to distinguish the Ford Motor Company from the other 255 companies that are vying for competition. He said, what if we made a product, this is before tires were tires, a product that would make the ride more comfortable than all the other wagons with engines? What do you think about that? So they went on this journey literally around the world. If you go to Thomas Edison's estate in New Jersey, that was one of his estates, you'll find all kinds of rubber trees that he brought back from all over the world. And they learned this process of vulcanization, how to vulcanize rubber into a usable entity. And the Ford motor car distinguished itself not because of its many colors. In fact, in Henry Ford's own fixed mindset, he said, there will never be a Ford that won't be black. Even his thinking was limited. There'll never be a Ford that won't be black. Well, that hadn't happened, right? But Harvey Firestone developed through Thomas Edison's mind space the technology to build tires for cars, and that's what distinguished the Ford Motor Company, which still, at least in Texas, is number one. Number one selling car in Texas is a Ford 150 truck. It's crazy, all these years later. But let me just tell you one last story about that. Here they are, Trey, Zeus, John, Ann. They're in a room like this, but one day, Thomas Edison wasn't there. And he got news that Henry Ford got news that Thomas Edison's laboratory had burnt to the ground. He went very early in the morning and he found Thomas Edison and his wife walking through the embers of what was once the laboratory where this genius, Thomas Edison, thought and turned thoughts into things. And it's the embers, it was still smoking. As Henry Ford drove up in his number one selling car in America with his new rubber tires, he asked his friend who had connected in a mastermind like this, what will it cost to rebuild? He said, you know, Henry, I have no idea. Henry Ford took out a check somebody can look this up, wrote him a check for $750,000, and he said, let's just start there. It was later recorded in a book called Uncommon Friends. You know what we've got here? We've got uncommon friends. It's uncommon. Like we are uncommon people. Where do people that feel like they don't fit go? Where do people that feel like, man, I was born in this family, but I know I'm the one in the family? Where do people go that are trying to win when everybody around them seems hell-bent on losing? Where do you go to elevate your thinking? How do you get around people where I'm saying, hey, here's the value of the room, and a guy like Trey says, well, listen, what about how much does it cost you not to be in a room like this? That's all. God bless you guys. Everybody say bye.
Success is hidden in templates. There is a template literally for everything that you want in life. You just have to find the template and you have to follow it. So come and join us. Start winning like never before and let 2024 be your greatest year ever.
You know, the Foundations Mastermind, I knew that it was going to challenge me. I knew that it was going to be an environment that I could grow into. What I was looking for personally was an area that I could work in my thought life, that I could develop myself and I could grow thinking about certain things, whether that was in my life or my business, and really just put a multiplier on it.
Wow, what an amazing experience. I got way more than I expected. I went in with one question, one goal, and I got way more above and beyond that. The feedback from all the other people in the room was, again, way above and beyond. I highly recommend it. You're absolutely gonna love it.
Maybe today nobody's clapped for you. Maybe nobody today has been excited to see you. I'm excited to see you, y'all. Your alignments will eventually determine your assignments. Your divine alignments will eventually determine your divine assignments. Your dominion is attached to who God created you to be and why He put you on the earth in the first place, to reflect an image that is not just your own, but that is His image in you based on the gifts that He's given you and the dreams that you have.
Self-discipline opens the door to self-discovery, which breeds self-confidence, and develops self-confidence, which equals self-mastery.
So again, the trifecta of leadership that God gave me was think wisdom, be disciplined, do excellence. If you can today, decide at least one thing, put it in the chat, or two, I know that I'm supposed to reflect the image of God to the world.
Prepare for your future with Keith Craft's Leadership Think Tank. Don't miss out. Sign up today at keithcraft.com or comment THINK to start your journey toward greatness.
Winning in Life Mastermind here in the beautiful Durango, Colorado has just been such an uplifting experience.
We've been able to create templates for ourselves and for our families.
Just really kind of hone in on what is our purpose in the earth. And we're just with elevated people, ambitious people. And when you're around people like that, it just really drives up your energy and makes you want to go out and just do more.
So in neuroscience, this pea-sized portion of your brain controls the ability of your brain. It's the gateway for what happens that is like the control tower of an airport. That's how important your reticular activation system is that most of us have never, ever heard of. And the revelation of this is that you decide. You have this power that God has given you to decide before something happens. And I call it predecision.
I really liked this year's Grow Day, and as somebody that goes to a lot of national meetings and conventions, I always love the breakout sessions because you get deeper.
My main takeaway from Grow Day, I found it really informative. You know, I always knew that being in a group was good, when you come together with another person that you align with, right? Those right values, the sky's the limit.